All right, everyone. I'm very, very excited to kick off this community meeting. There's a lot that we will be covering. Magnus, will you be able to assist with managing the deck?
I suggest, because I'm live streaming to all the places, Armando, are you in hand for that possibly?
Okay. Magnus, I suggest that you get that background, please. I'm going to keep going. All right, so this is a very exciting, for me, this is a very exciting, I think for all of us, a very exciting community meeting. It's packed. There's a lot for us to cover and a lot of things that we've been waiting for a very long time. We have this month, the Sovryn dollar will be launching. The Sovryn Mint will be launching. Zero protocol will be going into open access. And in addition to all of those things, there are, of course, the regular updates, plus metrics and updates on what has happened since our streaming event last month. And in addition to all of that, there's been an awakening in the force. Our thesis has always been that people are going to want to build on the most reliable, most secure, and most significant blockchain with the most significant asset base. And what we're seeing is awakening and more and more devs, more and more users are getting excited about this in a way that we really haven't seen before. So there's a lot for us to cover. And I'd like to start by talking about the market opportunity. So Magnus, is it possible to get the deck up?
I'm going to try share my screen. Give me a second.
Okay, so over the last few, Armando, I think I'm getting some feedback from you. Over the last few, seen a absolute dislocation in terms of the stablecoin market. Not one that was unexpected, but rather one which I think we've been anticipating. The third largest stablecoin, BUSD, is collapsing, and the SEC is very clearly moving towards seeing stablecoins as a security. And that makes a lot of sense, because stablecoins, as they're currently set up, have centralized issuers, and they represent a derivative of an existing asset. That is a classic security. And when you add into that deposit-taking activity, there's practically not a regulatory regime anywhere in the world which would not view these as their equivalent of a security. If we could move to slide 5, please. Now, what we've seen is Binance has been significantly affected. Paxos has been significantly already affected. Next slide, Coinbase have delisted BUSD. But going beyond what's just happening now, right? These are just headlines from the last week, but even they are starting to show us where we're going. If you see, what we're seeing is in Canada, in Hong Kong, in Israel, and in other countries, all this week, introducing or announcements around new regulatory constraints for centralized and algorithmic stablecoins. This, if you guys are familiar with with the word collusion, that's what this looks like. There's very clearly a strong shift in the regulatory environment, and that brings us to what we're doing now. It's like the timing couldn't have been better in terms of introducing the sovereign dollar The only standardized Bitcoin dollar, right? The only one which is fully backed by, no, if you go back, please. The only one which is fully backed by a truly decentralized asset, but you go even beyond that, Zero is a very, very unique type of smart contract protocol because it has no counterparty. When you open a line of credit and you borrow sovereign dollars, there's no central issuer of those sovereign dollars, but not even a central contract issuing those sovereign dollars. Every single line of credit is its own entity, and so you're borrowing from yourself. You have no counterparty. There's no one you're borrowing from. And so that is a huge advantage in terms of a regulatory environment and also in terms of, in the future, the types of players who will be able to use this, right? If you think about Bitcoin miners, if you think about other institutions, especially US institutions, that would be interested in using these borrowing service with pretty much any other borrowing service, they have very significant regulatory concerns because they're borrowing from a un-KYC'd, undifferentiated mass of lenders. Whereas here, there is no counterparty. So from the regulatory perspective, we are in a very interesting and unique moment. And I think drawing a sharp line under the thesis that we've had and that all Bitcoiners have had, which is that decentralization matters. Now, in addition to the sovereign dollar, we have several other things that are going live at the same time, all related. There's DApp 2.0. DApp 2.0 provides a better user interface. A lot of you have already been using it on testnet and playing with it. We've made a lot of improvements based on the feedback provided from you. It was extremely helpful, and thank you very much. That kind of work really helps polish the work and really makes it a communal effort. With DApp 2.0, Zero is going to be open access, which is a big event. So all of this happening this month. In addition to that, currently ongoing, there are 2 snapshot votes from the Mint token community for Mint token holders to choose to vote in favor or against sunsetting the Mint token, with a view to having the Sovryn Mint be integrated into the core set of sovereign protocols. So if you are a Mint token holder, now is your opportunity to participate in that vote. We also have had, there's a key question around redemptions, which is something we've discussed and should continue to discuss. And I'll leave this to Q&A so that we can discuss it further. But we are going to have a SIP to introduce a higher redemption fee and a higher origination fee that has been discussed in the forums. It has the potential to help balance the supply and demand of sovereign dollar issuance. It has the potential to significantly increase protocol revenues and, as a result, SOV staker yield. And so that is a big deal in and of itself, but going beyond that, the ability to have adjustable or more adjustable rates for Zero can be a very strong differentiator. And as part and parcel of all of this, the Circle of Tokens are working on a new framework for SOV rewards across the AMM, across the lending pool, across the stability pool, which a lot of work has gone into. I think they've come up with some very cool results. I've participated in that as well. So there's going to be information published for community discussion around that. And there too, I think we may see a significant upgrade to the way that Sovryn is doing things. Now, all of this is happening in the background of a significant shift in the type of conversation and the type of activity and the type of devs who are being attracted to working in the Bitcoin protocol and the Bitcoin ecosystem. And what we're seeing is, we're very, very early days. There's a lot of hype, but the hype doesn't seem to be dying. You can see that the number of inscriptions goes up and goes down, but seems to be on an upwards trend. And we're seeing different players trying to latch onto this. I'm sure you guys have all noticed Stacks, despite having relatively little adjacency to this market, spending most of their time talking about ordinals. It has also had an impact on the prices of three tokens in particular, STX, RIF, and SOV. And so there's clearly a market out there that is saying this is something big. We don't know yet who the winner is, and they're looking to take bets on this. So that creates a very important background in terms of proving our thesis that developers do want to build on Bitcoin, that users do want to use things built on Bitcoin, that there needs to be more functionality for Bitcoin, and that this is inevitable. It also creates a scenario where devs are starting to reach out to us, reach out to me. Investors are reaching out to us, reaching out to me, saying, there's a lot of desire to build in this space. There's more eyes on layer 2 Bitcoin now than maybe there's ever been before. And the fact that this is all happening as we're introducing Zero, Sovereign Mint, and there's, I think this is an extremely, it's almost like the perfect setup. That said, I also want to talk about the downside of ordinals to Bitcoin and what this potentially means to Bitcoin layer 2. So what we've seen is effectively a doubling in the size of Bitcoin blocks. Now, again, this trend may disappear, but it actually, even if the number of inscriptions doesn't continue to grow very much, we'll continue to see larger blocks from now basically until forever. And we're going to see a larger Bitcoin block size. And this is going to become much more of an issue. And there are, I think, two big implications here, or three. One, this is going to raise the cost of on-chain Bitcoin transactions, which is going to help accelerate the move to Bitcoin layer 2 out of pure pricing necessity. Second, I think it's going to demonstrate the fact that we need to find ways of moving this activity off of main chain if we don't want main chain to become bloated forever and continuously more bloated forever. And so we're already starting to see there a shift in the type of conversation. Now, it's now no longer a theoretical conversation. It's becoming a question of need and necessity in the same way that scaling in 2015, 16 was a conversation of necessity. And so, those two important trends, which are to our benefit, but at the same time, the chain that we're working on is under pressure in a way that it hasn't been for a while. And so the third aspect is, I think, if the work that we were doing was important until now, it is ever more so now. Our ability to take activity off-chain, provide additional scalability, and provide additional functionality is exactly what is needed at this time to not see that curve that we're looking at now go exponential. So that is the background to the conversation, and I'd like to hand it back to Magnus to move us on to the next section.
All right, next slide, please. Yeah, guys, so it's been a great past month for Reach and Zero conversion. As you can see, huge amount of website traffic, visitors on the up on the site and on the DApp as well. Month-on-month increases, also a large 42% increase from 2022, plus 106% in 1 year. Huge growth with website users as well as Zero itself, 2,593 on the waitlist signups in February 2023. It's a big 158% month-on-month increase and a 787% increase from the 2022 monthly average. Thank you. Next slide, please. Obviously, the brand launch was a huge success. This whole new world was opened up on February 9th on 2023. We had a huge spike in site traffic as a result of the launch. And this has continued throughout the month of February. Just a lot of interest, people getting excited about all this new branded news, videos, all the stuff that our team has been pumping out marketing-wise. Next slide, please. Launch events also had 5,395 viewers who tuned in. It was across 3 different streaming platforms, and also we've had a lot of interest post-event who've tuned in with a reach of around 8K, purely organic views. No money has been spent promoting it whatsoever. And also people have been taking in the site and the DApp post-viewing the live event stream through click-through and other view-through traffic that we've been tracking. Next slide, please. Yes, there's a huge appetite for Dollar. The people are really excited about seeing the Dollar and what the potential it has. No part huge thanks to the work of Yago and French Victory on their promotional content. Really high engagement. Really, people are liking the educational content that has the energy behind it. It's been a huge amount of organic traffic growth and conversion as a result. Next slide, please. And also, due to many factors such as the growth of our social media growth has been due to the brand launch. Our Twitter is growing. As you can see on the last 28 days, we've had a huge amount of tweet impressions, profile visits, mentions off the charts, and followers itself have all organically been going up and up. And also, we've been using things like Noster, expanding ourselves onto this platform as a way to just get ourselves out there, not be dependent on one platform, but rather be dependent on multiple platforms that are censorship resistant, and we will be focusing on them greatly in the coming months as well. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you very much. Next slide, please.
All right, I think we can ask Aurora to provide her update here.
Yes. I was again late for providing my notes. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to, Yago mentioned most of the things we did and are doing already, so I'm just going to add some more color to it. Just a few days ago, we executed the staking SIP, which was introducing a lot of changes to the staking contract. So there was a necessity to act because it's possible to steal someone else's voting power if using the right function, which in some corner case. And we fixed that one and used that as an opportunity to give the staking contract a complete rehaul because we were not able to implement any further changes to the staking contract without breaking it, just because we had reached the maximum contract size limit. So we refactored it and split the whole logic into multiple modules. And B, because this was not the first issue we got reported in the staking contract of this nature, so we decided to have a very thorough review of the staking contract and to add a lot of requirements to the code just to make sure that all of the possible edge cases are covered. We also fixed some smaller issues we had with the contract, where one was the cancellation of team vesting contracts. Not possible if the team vesting contract had too many different dates, and the correction of the vesting stake. The correction of the vesting stake was important because when we deployed for the latest investment round, the 4-year vesting contracts, the order of the code execution was incorrect, leading to vesting contracts being created, but only afterwards registered as vesting contracts. And this led to their stake not being registered as vesting stake on the contract, which is also the reason why fee sharing contract is currently, we are currently not using the fee distribution. This was supposed to be corrected at the SIP, However, because of merging, it was also tested on a local mainnet fork, but after merging it together with the refactoring and the additional requirement statements, one of the security statements actually kept us from executing the fix. So we have to have another SIP for this, and we are intending to have it not next week, but the week after. So it's only a short time until everything is functioning again, and we can finally re-enable the fee sharing. So much about the staking contracts. This was a big chunk of work, which is now over, and the staking contract should be more robust than ever. The other big project we've been working on is Mint. Mint is the protocol which is issuing the Sovryn dollar, and we integrated Mint with Zero. This integration can already be tested on testnet on the new web app, and it allows us to open a line of credit in a single transaction, also to use, if you hold Sovryn dollar, to use it to pay back the credit in a single transaction without having to convert between the different assets in between. So it's just a very convenient way to use the two protocols together. We're going to have a SIP for this. This is we're currently doing the last steps of preparation, and we'll let you know on the channels as soon as they are up for voting. But this is just one of the SIPs we're currently working on. There are going to be two more SIPs. One SIP Jago already mentioned, which is the depreciation of the bonding curve. First, waiting for the results of the MIP, which is currently up for voting. And then also the SIP to update the Zero fees. Most of you know that we had an unusually high amount of redemptions not too long ago, which is mostly due to low liquidity of other stable coins on Bluefish and the AMM diverging from the global market price too much so that it became profitable to use the redemptions instead. And that's why we are suggesting to update the fees. Higher redemption fee means that the price of the AMM would need to deviate much further in order for trouble to use a redemption instead of just trading on the AMM. Also, this should lead to a higher trading volume on the AMM, which in turn should be beneficial not just to the DLR AMM pool LPs, but also to the Sovryn stakers. And for the same proposal, we are also suggesting an increase of the origination fee to finally reduce the number of lines of credit which are being opened, and maybe also get users to use the lending pools instead, which in turn can generate yield for DLR liquidity providers. All of these actions together should help with the redemption situation and prevent excessive redemptions like we saw past weeks to not happen again. So just to sum up, we're going to have three SIPs. One is the depreciation of the Mint bonding curve. The second one is the integration between Mint and Zero. And the third one is the Zero fee update. These SIPs are published, and if we assume that they pass, we can go ahead with the launch of new web app. And like I mentioned before, this new web app can already be tested on the testnet. So everything except the fast BTC interface, which will only launch on mainnet. And with it also a general access release. I think these are the most important things we've been working on. Are there any questions?
Before we open it up to questions, I just would like to say one thing. What we're able to introduce over the coming month, assuming the Metocracy votes in favor, is the culmination of many, many, many months of very hard work from a lot of people. And it was an extremely complex piece of work with many interrelated moving parts, which, among other things, need to be maintained at the highest level of security, and at the same time be done as maintenance of the entire protocol, security. Guys, if you can please mute yourselves. Ongoing maintenance, ongoing development of things that will be coming in the future, and security and bug fixes. So there's been a huge amount of work on a really complex problem, and I have nothing but gratitude to all of the people who have been working on it. At the same time, none of this has been possible if there wasn't a wider network of support here. All of you guys who join these calls, who advocate, who support, who provide feedback, testing, participate in the forums, participate in Metocracy, participate in the SIPs. This is a huge effort of thousands of people coming together. And something I think we can all be very, very proud of. And I think with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. Wow, this is the least number of questions we've ever had. Ben 92.
Oh, no,
yes.
I have a question.
Shoot.
I have a question, TM here.
Yep.
Is Wayne on the call? Perhaps I haven't seen him. Or probably I have a question for the adoption team. So, how do you see things going forward, and what's his plan, and what can we expect in the future?
Since Wayne isn't here, I will take a stab at answering that. The adoption team we've discussed this previously, but we're going to be needing to do two things now. The introduction of these new tools, we're in a position that we've been envisioning, from the beginning. We finally have a stable coin that can be used without introducing centralized systemic risk to the protocol. We have a stable asset that can be used by non-Bitcoiners. We have a lending protocol that is very attractive. And so that will help generate the liquidity and the issuance of the Sovryn dollar. So the primary goal that we have over the course of this coming year is that now that we feel that we have a somewhat more mature protocol, a more mature ecosystem, is going to be growing that ecosystem. That means more third-party integrations. It means more ecosystem development. It means more of a focus on building beyond the Sovryn protocol. And so that's going to be the one primary thread of the work over the coming year. The second thread is introducing the work that we've done to a wider audience now. Up until now, Sovryn has been useful to a hardcore set of users. And it was difficult or probably pointless to try and expand significantly outside of that niche. The interfaces weren't ready for it. The products weren't ready for it. The tooling wasn't ready for it. Over the course of the last year, we've seen a significant maturation of data analytics, of the types of products available, of UI, and many other things. And so the other piece of work is going to be now starting to communicate the features, but specifically the benefits to a wider set of users. And those two things should combine, because even our DAP 2.0, we don't expect it to be a mass market tool. It's more like a power user tool. And so it's by having more of these third parties and more projects and ecosystem development occurring around the protocol, and will provide tools which allow us to extend further and further into a mass market. And at the same time, introducing the kind of things like a sovereign dollar and like borrowing and lending, which are relatively simple and can be used by a much larger audience, to those ecosystem projects. Now, this is not something which is going to happen overnight. This is going to be as much work as everything that we've done, and it's going to be incremental, gradual, and we'll have to build on success after success. But I think we're well positioned to do that. I think the market opportunity is very, very favorable. And I think a core thing that we need to understand as a community as it relates to this is that because we've been niche and because we've been building the protocol, we've been very focused on sovereign marketing Sovryn and building products that are part of the Sovryn protocol. And we need to now begin to shift that to Sovryn promoting and marketing others, encouraging others to build in Sovryn, and seeing a lot more stuff done outside of Sovryn core rather than inside of Sovryn core.
Great response. This is Ben. May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Can you elaborate on the status of the roadmap for the Babelfish ZUSD to XUSD bridge for Zero, and what the ongoing roadmap is as it relates to the sovereign dollar?
So Hyde and maybe others from Babelfish here. Hyde, would you like to respond to that?
Hey. So currently, ZUSD is still over 90% of XUSD composition. So there is not a great reason to on-post the deposits. But what my personal view on this is that it would be great once sovereign dollar is out there, live on mainnet, to have a BIP vote on swapping ZUSD for a sovereign dollar in an XUSD pool, as sovereign dollar is going to have more use cases. So this would be the way to handle it from my perspective. Yeah, others might have another opinion on that.
Hyde, I think it's very relevant. If you can maybe speak to the incentive curves that you guys are introducing.
Yeah, this is another thing. This is something that we are still working on. So we are going to have curves implemented for to incentive to have an incentive for certain deposits and withdrawals. So this will introduce a mechanism which will allow us to have a better ability to maintain the desired allocations of stable coins. So this will just help us out with balancing the baskets of stable coins. And once that's introduced, this is also a good time to on-post the deposits. So it's everything it's still not decided. We have to take it as it is and see where it leads us. That's from me. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'd just like to add that one of the advantages of having to build an ecosystem from scratch, which is a challenge that most projects haven't had to deal with, is that we've built out a certain skill set around doing that. And so Babelfish is part of our ecosystem, but we can generate demand for Sovryn dollar within the Sovryn ecosystem alone, even if it takes a little bit more time for the incentive curves to come through from Babelfish, which can generate significant demand. There will be the introduction of a new AMM pool, the Sovryn dollar to BTC, the introduction of Sovryn dollar to the lending pool, allowing people to start using it as a yield-bearing asset, which is not possible right now with ZUSD. There's improvements to how we present the stability pool and incentives that we can provide around using the stability pool to further drive demand for ZUSD Sovryn dollar. And so we have runway still to generate the kind of demand that is necessary to allow issuance of zero. And then there's also the ability for people to always use Bitcoin on and off ramps, and particularly fast BTC as a way to get value. They don't necessarily have to go out through a stablecoin, and more users have been realizing this and using it. And so another thing that we're going to be looking to see in the near future is an increase in the liquidity available to fast BTC, which will allow more and larger transactions to occur through fast BTC as well.
In particular, deposits greater than 3 BTC at a time. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, but also withdrawals larger. Yes.
Yeah, that would be very welcome. All right. Do you think the Sovryn dollar change to zero will happen before the Babelfish ZUSD to XUSD conversion is restored?
Currently, I think we're anticipating that it will. That it may take another month or two before testing and UI are ready for Babelfish incentive curves. And so one of the things that I've been involved in is trying to model out incremental demand available even without that, and I think we still have room to run. There's still work to be done around this, but we should be ready, and we should be able to continue to generate demand for Sovryn dollar and allow zero lending to continue to grow.
Just to clarify, when you said it will, you think Sovryn dollar will be introduced before ZUSD to XUSD conversions?
Correct. That's what I'm currently anticipating. That's our current best bet.
Thank you, and thanks to the whole team for your hard work. It's a great platform.
Thanks very much, Ben.
I just wanted to add one small piece of information, and that's that as soon as the Sovryn dollar and the Sovryn dollar AMM pool are up and running, which will be in the very near future, it will be possible to trade the Sovryn dollar against XUSD on the AMM, even if neither ZUSD nor Sovryn dollar deposits are allowed on the Babelfish protocol yet. So there will be a path toward getting XUSD.
That's a great addition. Thank you.
Is there room for another question?
Absolutely. Who's speaking?
Perfect. I'm here again. I wanted to ask because about the how is it called, financial reports or these updates. The latest I have seen was in Q2 2022, and I wanted to ask what's the expected schedule, or are they coming frequently, or
Are you referring
down to one question?
Are you referring to the Exchequer budget reports?
I'm not exactly sure how they are called. Basically, the question comes down to the expected runway we have still left after the investment that we made.
Sure. Let me ask Armando to give his thoughts here.
Yeah, so the quick answer is that there is runway until the end of 2024. The slightly longer answer is that we're compiling now the financials for 2022. Once those are complete, we'll submit for a SIP those financials together with the budget proposal, which has already been approved by the Exchequer Committee, and that'll outline the runway, the budget for the different circles, and in terms of timing, I expect that SIP to go up. So right now, as you guys have seen, there are a number of SIPs coming up over the next few weeks, so we just need to find a time to slot it in. But I'm hoping it will be up at least for review in the forum within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, thanks. Great. Thanks for the answer. One small addition I have to that, it may be a year or two ago, there was talks about having a dashboard kind of seeing to have it transparently displayed for all of us. I'm not sure how that went, or maybe it even makes your job easier altogether than to create these reports.
Well, we do want to provide that dashboard. We currently have an internal tool that we're using. The simple truth is that the dashboard needs some adjustments, and it's a matter of priorities in terms of dev time. I can't give a solid date on when it will be launched, but yeah, I mean, it just needs to be slotted into one of the sprints. So I can't give an answer now. What I will look to do is to see when we can have this out and add that to the forum post around the budget and the finances.
So I'd just like to add a little bit of color on that. That was something that has proven to be a very, very significant piece of work, and has consumed on an ongoing basis over the last year, probably months of dev time. There is an internal tool which is the result of that work, which could, with additional work, be converted into something which is, just generally available. But I actually think that there's likely more work to be done there, and it's a question of prioritizing work that has, the last couple of months we haven't been prioritizing that work at all, even more than the last couple of months. And so it would be a question of slotting that work back into the sprint planning. Are there additional questions?
Yeah, go for it. Questions.
Shoot.
What is the expected revision for the origination and redemption fees? I know there was kind of a range that you were looking at. What are you guys leaning towards?
Yeah, so I put out a blog post, which some of you may have seen. I have suggested that the origination fees could go, the base origination fee could go as high as 12%, and it wouldn't be ridiculous. We have looked at this in a number of different ways. There's trade-offs here. For example, a wider gap between origination fees and redemption fees creates a somewhat softer peg. So the peg would still stay within the bounds of the dollar, but would potentially be able to float up and down more. And it also may, if origination fees are very high, it can discourage users from borrowing. On the other hand, it could encourage borrowing from the lending pool. and could drive additional revenue. So there's a number of considerations here. Because this is something that hasn't been done, ultimately our feeling was that we should try a relatively more conservative change to begin with. And so the SIP that will be going out will provide for a base origination fee of 2.5% and an equivalent 2.5% base redemption fee.
Got it. And I'm sure this will be discussed more in depth once we introduce the SIP, but do you worry that this potentially kind of puts us on a slippery slope to introducing human governance into some of these contracts and then also potentially squeezing the third-party integrations for people that want to use the SDK? They really have minimal margin to like add their own fees, and that would stunt adoption.
So I think that's an excellent question, and I'll give the same answer I give to similar questions when I get this one. I don't see it as a slippery slope at all, because I don't believe that Sovryn is designed to be without human governance. The Bitocracy was designed as a governance system. The Sovryn protocol is vastly more complex in terms of the types of functionality and features and products it offers than something like Bitcoin. And so the mental model that I have, and I think is shared by a lot of people, is that a monetary asset, right, effectively is a measuring stick of value, and it shouldn't be governed. It should be ungovernable entirely. But application level systems do require a degree of governance for many reasons. And so there the question becomes not of having no human governance, but of having the right set of incentives, as well as having unstoppable, unchangeable, uncorruptible contracts for users. And I think with Zero, we strike that balance very, very well. For example, if you open, so on the one hand, there's the incorruptibility. If you open a line of credit at a 0.5% origination fee today, that will be your origination fee forever. Any changes that may be made in the future will only impact people who take out lines of credit in the future. So there's a very powerful structure in place here to make sure that the rules can't be changed under the feet of the user. And at the same time, in terms of having the correct set of incentives, I think Bitocracy is a very powerful tool incentivizing long-term staking, and as a result, long-term thinking. Right? We don't have quarterly thinking in Sovryn. We don't have speculative thinking. The vast majority of stakers are staked almost to the maximum or to the maximum. And so I think that is the right balance for the type of problem we're solving for with Sovryn, which is different from the problem that you're solving for with Bitcoin.
I think I'll probably be taking the other side of that argument as time goes on, but for now I understand the rationale. My final question is, did we consider just using the base rate and just adjusting that so the algorithm on the base rate increases the origination and redemption fees algorithmically and decays off that way, rather than us kind of playing this guessing game of saying, what should the origination and redemption fee be? Should it be 1%, 2%, 5%, rather than do something that says, hey, there's a lot of traffic that's happening right now. It automatically increases the rate and then it decays over time. I feel like that'd be a better solution. Did we just not think it was a good solution, or did we think that it would just take too much time to develop?
So I'll respond to that question in a moment. I just want to respond to the first thing that you said, which was a skeptical grunt. I think your skepticism, I might be wrong, but I'm imagining your skepticism comes from the fact that you are unconvinced that there should be any form of human governance. And so I just want to reiterate what I think is the most important point here. Once you have opened a line of credit, there is no further human governance. and that is a very special property, right? What you enter into a contract, which is unchangeable and uncorruptible, in the same way that Bitcoin rules are ungovernable, right? It's only in terms of our ability not to ossify, in other words, to introduce changes in the future, that we seek to preserve the ability for governance. And I think in that respect, it's important. Now, with regards to the second question that you asked,
Iago, can you hear me?
yes.
I want to offer a point of clarification here because it's also related to something you said earlier about zero users managing their lines of credit through individual contracts. I think there's a misunderstanding here of how zero works. It's fundamental to the point you're making, which is that all lines of credit are merely abstractions within a single contract on rootstock called the active pool. And this active pool is governed, it's upgradable by Bitocracy.
Okay. That's the clarification you wanted to provide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so what that means is, right, that the contract, as it currently stands, is Hue and governable. I think that's an important distinction that John Light is making. The changes that we're discussing would not impact existing lines of credit, although there is the theoretical possibility of all kinds of shenanigans. But we expect to be able to reduce the possibility for the shenanigans while still being able to maintain governance. That is going to require additional work, and it's something that we will have to evolve towards in exactly the same way that other contracts in Sovryn, when they were launched, were governed directly by Exchequer, for example, and their governance has been shifted to Bitocracy. And over time, we also can reduce the types of things that Bitocracy is going to do, or could potentially theoretically do.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, for example, one thing that you could do is you could make the active pool contract and all other zero contracts immutable, except for, a few parameters like the borrowing fee or the base rate or whatever. So, Bitocracy, even if it wanted to, couldn't upgrade the contract to, let's say, seize everybody's collateral. But it would still be able to adjust the borrowing fee, which would only affect people who are opening new lines of credit.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, John. Now, with regards to the second question that you asked, already in Zero is built in the ability for the system to dynamically adjust on the basis of redemptions, both the redemption rate and the origination rate. What we're talking about right here is the origination fee. And the reason that that's what we're focused on changing now is that is something which is within scope, within our capability to change within the time that we have to achieve what we want to achieve. There are a lot of ideas around more sophisticated, effectively automated ways in which the system could be algorithmically dynamic, which wouldn't require Bitocracy to be engaged in it at all. But that's going to require additional work. So I think it's worth pointing out that Sovryn is far from a finished project, right? We've still got many years of development ahead of us. And among the things that we're going to look to do is improve Zero, improve security on an ongoing basis, have more and more contracts only governable on the parameter level, but not more than that, as well as introducing new features and things like that. So the phase that we're in now is we are more mature, but Zero it hasn't yet been given opportunity to breathe, in terms of anyone being able to use it at all yet. And I think that it's we with all of the products that have been built, we've recognized weaknesses that need to be improved. And so that is a reason why governance is more important in the earlier phases of the project and will become less important over time.
I would like to add to that and say that the reason why I believe that it is better to introduce these changes at the fee floor level as opposed to the base rate level is that the base rate is only changing reactively to redemptions. And so as redemption volumes increase within a given period of time, the base rate is increasing according to the base rate formula. And what adjusting the floor has as a benefit is that it's a proactive measure for increasing the fees. It means that we don't have to wait until there's some amount of redemptions occurring to change those fees, but rather we can observe what's happening in the market and perhaps anticipate, based on the conditions that are being observed, that redemptions might soon start occurring. Or we could expect that a relatively high rate of ZUSD inflation is occurring or might soon occur, and adjust the fees proactively to temper any negative effects that we would anticipate from those kinds of conditions. And I think that's what that's like a key benefit of doing it that way.
I understand. Thanks.
We are towards the end of the community meeting. So before we close off, I'd like to ask if anyone has one last question, which we can field. And if not, then we can bring the call to a close. And we can choose to stay on a little bit after the official close of the call for additional discussion. So is there any other question that would like to be asked? Okay, so then I expect, as very commonly happens, a lot of the questions and most vigorous debate will happen with the closure of the community call. So I call the community call to a close. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm very excited about what's coming. It feels like we've reached the summit of at least the first mountain. Thank you everyone, and stay sovereign.
Stay sovereign.
Stay sovereign, folks.